Hi y'all, it's Maddie. If you are new, I am a 24-year-old stay-at-home mom to two little girls. My first will be 3 in April, and then I have a 6-month-old. And I'm gonna do my makeup and tell my birth story for my second baby. So, if you guys have not watched my first birth story, it's a long one. I would recommend watching that because I am gonna reference some. Well, I mean, you don't have to watch it. Basically, I was induced at 40 weeks and 3 days. It ended in an emergency C-section after trying to use forceps and all that, and then my C-section opened to the point that I needed to pack and unpack it at home. I almost needed a wound vac, like they ordered it, but I healed just enough to not need it. So yeah, it was a whole thing. I had gestational diabetes. I threw up the first 21 weeks. Yes, had gestational diabetes diagnosed at 28 weeks. I thought I had it before that. I asked them to test me before that. I didn't have the best care. So I had a lot of anxiety when I got pregnant again. I was about 18 months postpartum, which you are supposed to wait 18 months. At least. I was cleared at 18 months. Like I was told I would be fine type thing. I'm also having hormonal acne, but it's great. I had gone back and forth about wanting a VBAC versus a scheduled C-section. Now, there are definitely people out there, like women, like on TikTok, that will tell you that you should never have a C-section. You never need one, it's awful, and all of that. And I want to say that, yes, there are sometimes that there are forced C-sections. In my case, with my first, my birth canal is very oval. And again, there are women that will tell you it doesn't matter. You can still have your babies. And my daughter got stuck and I was induced. I had an epidural, I had Pitocin. I did a lot of things that put me at a higher risk for a C-section. And I didn't know it at the time. I do now. Also having gestational diabetes is a risk factor for a C-section. I did keep my sugars in check, but it just is what it is. So I had said I wanted to do an unmedicated VBAC or I wanted a scheduled C-section. So I found a new doctor because I didn't like the care that I received the last time. And I explained to her everything at my first appointment and said, listen, these are my two things and I want to know what you think and why. And we went over everything. We went over my medical history. We went over how I was feeling. And we decided that I was not the best candidate for a VBAC. And I asked, can I have some time to think about it? And she was like, well, yeah, you have months, like, before your baby gets here. And she was like, if you want to do a VBAC, that's fine. If you want a scheduled C-section, that's cool too. And I ended up taking, oh my God, all the hair. A while to think on it and discussing it with my husband. And I told him that I felt like if I was going to do a VBAC, I needed to believe in my body. Like I needed to know that I could do it. And I didn't. Mentally, I was still very scared. And he was like, you know what? Let's just have a scheduled C-section. Like we can go in, it'll be scheduled. You know what to expect. Like, let's just do that. You know, he was leaning towards that and he said, I'll support you. But like, the emergency one was really intense for both of us. I did end up going the scheduled C-section route. So I figured that out before I think it was in the second trimester when I made that decision. And I had her at 39 weeks, which again is controversial to have your babies early. I know. But I want to back up real quick and talk about my pregnancy a little bit. So I did breastfeed until I was like 7 months pregnant and my first daughter was 25 months. My doctor didn't like this. She told me that she recommends everybody wean. And I said, why? And she said, because it can cause preterm labor. And I was like, but I'm not at risk of preterm labor. And before y'all get your panties in a wad and you're like, see, you should listen to your doctor, all this stuff. Doctors don't know everything. And she wasn't aware of some of the new studies. I said I've done a lot of research. I actually was in Nurse Family Partnership and that nurse nursed her baby through her entire pregnancy as well. And I just said I don't want to wean my daughter. I want to go until 2. We can talk about it at every appointment so you can assess how I'm doing. But yeah, I did suffer from low blood sugar. I thought I was getting gestational diabetes, but I actually didn't. We tested me twice. And we tested me pretty early, and then again later, just to make sure, to be safe, because again, I had it and I told them I thought I had it with my first, and they didn't test me. Like, I had all the symptoms. I didn't know how to eat for it. It was a whole thing. So this doctor did test me and I didn't have it. And I think it is because I breastfed. When you breastfeed, you lower your risk for type 2 diabetes, for certain types of cancers. It's really awesome. But like I said, I did end up having low blood sugar, and I actually passed out holding my toddler on gravel and scratched her face really bad. It was very scary. I felt like an awful mom. I was just having a lot of food aversions and I wasn't really hungry, but being pregnant and breastfeeding takes a lot out of you. So I learned that I needed to eat regardless of if I was feeling hungry or not. So yeah, I didn't have diabetes. I wasn't really sick. I don't think I got sick once. I would be nauseous. Like I said, I had food aversions. Food tasted really gross my first trimester, but yeah, I had a pretty uneventful pregnancy. And I knew I was scheduled. When I was scheduled, you know, we went in, and they somehow told me the wrong time. Like, I got there and they was like, you were supposed to be here hours ago. And I like pulled out the paper and I was like, no. And they were like, that's crazy. So yeah, I don't know what happened there. But everyone was super nice. It was such a different experience. My first, so I didn't realize when you have an epidural and then have an emergency C-section, they just like throw a bunch of pain meds down your epidural basically. When you have a scheduled C-section, it's actually a spinal block. So again, like, I didn't know this, so it was a lot different. Both times I threw up during my first C-section aggressively. The second time I said, I don't want to puke. And like, I'm really afraid of puking. It sucks laying there puking. Like, I got super nauseous, and also like, I just have a lot of anxiety because like, if y'all go watch my first birth story, it was a lot, okay? But I ended up being like, oh my God, I'm gonna be sick, like right shortly after they gave me the spinal block. And he ended up giving me some medicine, and like right away to where I wasn't nauseous anymore, which was amazing. It was really scary to leave Jacob. He did miss the birth of our first, that's my husband. So I was like, get him back here, don't start without him. I was really anxious. But the doctor, I also told him I was feeling very anxious, the anesthesiologist. So he got me all numb, took care of my nausea, gave me some relaxing meds. And I was like, don't start without Jacob. And they were like, we won't, we promise. They bring Jacob back. I am so relaxed. I was just chilling. I was relaxing. Jacob kind of stood up and watched. This is such a different experience. Izzy also didn't cry right away. My first, very scary. They had to give her oxygen. They had to like get her breathing. She was not breathing. And then her hands and feet were white for like a day because she was oxygen deprived. Like, it was so scary. Kennedy came out crying right away. I will say another difference. They had to push Izzy back up inside of me. Kennedy, they had to push her out. It felt like they were standing on me. And that's what I told them. I was like, it feels like you're standing on me. She came out crying, and it was the best sound. And also with Izzy, like, she wasn't crying. I kept asking, is she okay? And then they handed her to Jacob, which like is fine. But like, they brought her over to me, and I'd been throwing up. I was so shaky from like all the meds. I pushed for 3 hours. I was exhausted, and I like didn't get to see her. Like, it was a lot. I don't really remember seeing her for the first time. Kennedy though, I was very relaxed. I heard her cry. Again, they handed her to Jacob. He came over and sat down with her. I got to see her. Izzy's eyes were open when I saw her. Kennedy would not open her eyes because it's bright. And I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, her eyes aren't open. And the nurse was like, no, her eyes are fine. She's just, so it was just a lot more chill. And then Jacob took her back to the first area we were while they finished up. And I was just talking. We were just hanging out. Also, another thing, I got to meet all of the staff. So when I had my first C-section, it was an emergency. It was at shift change. A bunch of new people came in that I didn't know. This time, I got to meet my nurse. I got to meet Izzy's nurse. I got to meet like everybody. I got to meet the assistants, and like it was just such a different experience. So Izzy's nurse, or Kennedy's nurse, who was super nice, went back with Jacob, and then I get wheeled out, and I'm chilling still. I did have low blood pressure both times. I don't know what was up with that. I feel like I need to open this curtain more. A little bit gloomy. I get wheeled out and they don't want to sit me up right away because you can have low blood pressure and like, anyway, they still have to push on your stomach. I didn't remember them doing that with Izzy, so I was like super confused. But then the nurse comes over, and Kennedy's nurse, and rips open my gown. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? She was like, so we can do skin to skin and you can like breastfeed. Oh, because I told them I wanted to breastfeed. That was another thing. We had gotten to talk about how I wanted to feed her. Also, with my first, after we were wheeled back, like I said, it was like shift change, everything. I couldn't hold Izzy. I didn't know how to breastfeed. The nurses were like, the 2 nurses that were in there were complaining about their coworkers. Like, it was just so weird. And I was just so tired. With this, I wasn't tired. I hadn't had to do any work. So we did skin to skin. I breastfed. The nurse helped me latch her and stuff because I still had to stay laying back because my blood pressure was a little bit low. And they didn't want me passing out, Avi. Jacob got food delivered, I think. I wasn't hungry yet. That's another thing. They make, like, for me, C-sections made me, like, not very hungry. I breastfed her. Jacob got to hold her a ton. And then Izzy, after she was born, went to the nursery to do a round of antibiotics, which I always said I didn't want her going to the nursery. But I changed my mind because I was so tired. I needed to sleep after she was born, and she needed antibiotics because my uterus was too hot. It's a whole thing, which again is controversial, giving my newborn antibiotics. I decided to do it. She's fine. It's almost 3 years later, but we got to keep her. And then it was time to go to the new room, and Jacob was like, well, I want to walk with her. And they were like, no, she has to ride on the bed with mom. So we transferred to our new room, and then I think we video called. I think Izzy came up to see me maybe the next day. It's still kind of fuzzy. It was just such a different experience. I will say I ended up experiencing horrible gas pain after having Kennedy. And my C-section opened just a little bit. It was just surface level. I had gotten like some fluid built up, and we kept an eye on it. It wasn't anything like before. It didn't really hurt. Another big difference. I was numb from the belly button down until I was pregnant again, to be honest with you. I wasn't this time. I have feeling. It's very strange. So that was another big difference. I do have diastasis recti. My muscles are pulled apart. I probably need physical therapy. That's something that kind of just happens with C-sections and pregnancy. I had such a wonderful birth experience. I will say the hospital I gave birth at is Catholic. I'm not Catholic, but they will not tie my tubes while they're in there, which I think is ghetto because they're right there. But oh well. So I don't know if I'm done having kids or not. I'm kind of leaning towards being done, but Kennedy is only 6 months old. But Izzy has insomnia, and so it's kind of just a lot. Love that. But and then by the time Kennedy weans from breastfeeding, I will have been breastfeeding, pregnant, or both for 5 years. I want a break, but then I don't want a huge age gap in between my kids. So I'm gonna go back in with my bronzer on my eyelids, on my contour. So it was a wonderful experience. I definitely do not regret it. I would definitely have another scheduled C-section if I had another baby. It was very healing. I see a lot of women talking about doing VBACs and how healing they are. And for me, my scheduled C-section was very healing. It was a wonderful experience. You know, I knew when my baby was coming. We went in. It was hard to leave Izzy, but she got to come visit. So yeah, it's a lot better. I will say, I know that some people think C-sections are the easy way out. If you're a first-time mom watching this and um, you're like, well, maybe I'll just have a scheduled C-section. It is major abdominal surgery. It is harder usually for your body to recover. Another thing is that sometimes with C-sections, especially if you have it at 39 weeks like I did, your body doesn't start producing milk at that point because it doesn't realize that you've had the baby. For me, I started leaking milk when I was like 20 weeks pregnant with Izzy, and I never dried up. So I didn't have that problem, but that is another thing that can sometimes happen, is that your milk won't come in on time when you need it. I don't know. Another thing, I didn't feel as drugged with my second C-section. Like I said, they did give me medication for my anxiety. So that probably did lead to me feeling more drugged. I don't know exactly what they gave me, but he was like, do you want something for your anxiety? And I was like, yes, drug me up. But I have a panic attack on this table. So also with my first, when I was pushing, my upper back hurt so bad. I didn't have any of those problems with my second C-section. I do highly recommend getting like a belly binder thing. I'll insert a picture of the one that I like to use. You can get a cheap one. I use them when I'm pregnant and then after I have my babies. Yeah, it was just a much different pregnancy, a much different experience. I gained about the same amount of weight each time. I gained like around 35 pounds, which I was supposed to gain like 20, but I've heard some women that gain like 60s or even more. So yeah. I feel like I was a lot more active in my second pregnancy because I had a toddler to chase. But yeah, I lost 15 pounds still in my second pregnancy, even though I wasn't throwing up. I think it was from breastfeeding. Or just food aversions. I think this is gonna be my opinions on some things. That birth is definitely not one size fits all. And I see a lot of women using this argument of, 100 years ago they didn't do C-sections or whatever. I do understand that there are doctors that are shady and will give you a C-section even if you don't need it. And that, Pitocin is a little bit sketchy. I think there's times for it, but I don't, there are doctors that are shady. My biggest advice is if you don't like your doctor, if you don't feel like they're being honest with you, if you don't feel like they're educating you, find a new doctor. You can find a new doctor while you're pregnant. But what I was going to say with the 100 years ago thing, a lot of women died during childbirth. I think it is dumb to be like, all women can give birth vaginally. Like, literally, some women cannot. I don't know if I'm technically one of those women. I don't know if I would have gone unmedicated. If I would have had issues. I don't know. I think that it's a very case-by-case thing. There are definitely people online that will tell you your baby was surgically extracted. You didn't give birth. And you know what? Like, that really doesn't bother me. My kids technically were surgically extracted. There are women that will be like, the doctor had your baby, not you, and all this stuff. Again, I don't really care. I think that those women are saying that to get attention and to spark controversy. Good Lord. I don't take it personally. I don't really care. Call it what you want. My kids are here. They are healthy. They're thriving. They're great. I need to go get a Q-tip. Okay, so at the end of the day, I think that you need to make the decision that is best for you and your health. And there are going to be people on both sides of this argument. And I think that you need to find a doctor that listens to you, that you think is educated, and that you feel comfortable with. And at the end of the day, it's your body, it's your decision. I don't think C-sections are the easy way out. I think all birth is valid. I think birth is hard no matter how you do it. I will say, like, I didn't really have to do any work, but recovery was a bitch. So, I couldn't pick up my toddler for like 8 weeks, which was really difficult, like getting her in and out of the car and living. Um, like I said though, I think that there are people that are gonna be ugly because they can. There are people, you know, people have home births, and there are people that like call them crazy, and that's just everyone's doing their own thing. But this was just my birth story. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content from me. I post a lot of cleaning videos because as a homemaker, I spend a lot of time cleaning, and it's easy content to film and put out. I am going to be moving soon though to a much prettier house, so I'm very excited about that. And I plan on taking you guys along with me, so stay tuned for that. Bye, guys.